Coming from the great American Southwest from the very low desert, good morning, good evening, whatever the case may be to all my listeners around this earth. I'm here again, your host, Lionel Tavares, along here with my co-host, Dominic, and we're always blessed to be here by the Lord Jesus Christ himself. He's giving me another day to have a guest on and talk about things that relate to him, which is everything pretty much. This podcast is for everybody to come on and talk about their experiences, their story, whatever they want to share with us. No matter what it is, we're going to look at it through a biblical lens. So today, we are bringing back our guest, Gary Wayne. And if you've been living under a rock, we have already announced many months ago that we're going to have Gary Wayne on every single month. Once a month, forever, until we just don't breathe no more. We're going to call it the Gary Wayne Transmission. If you guys have a better title for what we're going to call this segment every month, but we all landed on the Gary Wayne Transmission. We're going to have a cool little logo for it, maybe make our own little custom song for it, but hope you guys enjoy it. We've already discussed, this year we discussed Islam, we discussed Satan's little season, and this episode today is going to be talking about AI. So let's get into this exciting episode. We're going to be talking about AI, everything from the technology to where it came from, what's going to be coming of it in the future, and of course, we're all going to wrap it up with Gary Wayne. And Gary Wayne's always going to connect it to the Bible, not because he's trying to, because that's just what happens when you just get history, you get prophecy, you connect it all in one, and it always relates to the Bible. So I can't wait to share this episode with everybody, but don't forget to like, share, subscribe, follow us on all our social media platforms, everything from TikTok, X, Facebook, Instagram, and obviously right here on YouTube. And if you want to share your story, go ahead and email me at sabbathatmidnight@icloud.com, or sabbathatmidnight@gmail.com. And the easiest way to get a hold of me is to DM me directly on my social media, Instagram, sabbathatmidnight. That is the best way to get a hold of me. I'm very active on there when it comes to responding to DMs. So please go ahead and contact me there. And if you want to try to get a hold of me even faster, look at my YouTube, profile, biography, whatever you want to call it. It has all my information, everything from where you can donate, everything for how to get a hold of me on email, and even text message me personally. So if you want to get your story out, I would love to get that out. But moving forward, like I always say, let's get ready, get up, turn down the lights, grab yourself a coffee, go sit in your most comfortable seat, kick your feet up, hit the head first, of course, if you have to go, because you want to miss this. But when you get back from hitting the head, sit down, relax, and let's get ready for a very exciting episode here on the Sabbath at Midnight. Welcome, everybody, to the show. I'm your host, Lionel Tavares from the Sabbath at Midnight, here to bring you another exciting episode. It is the first of the month again. We have Gary Wayne back with us, and we've been having him on for 3 months in a row. I know you guys love him on here, so help me out with a little idea. I want to have a second show. I want to have a second name for him. So if you guys have a good idea for that, maybe call it, Machine Gun Gary with the facts or something like that. I don't know, but something cool like that would be nice. And so thank you again, Gary, for coming back on. We just got done talking about Satan's Little Season. Very good episode. Had a lot of controversy, but a lot of people resonated with it mostly. And, we're not going to agree with everything. That's just how the world is. It's better to agree to disagree when it gets to that point. But with that being said, I'm here with my co-host Dominic and Gary. Once again, tell us where to find your stuff, and go ahead and tell us where your websites are and your cool books, and let us know the update on your novel.
Sure. So the best place to find out a little bit more about me is to go to my website at the Genesis6conspiracy.com. That's the number 6conspiracy.com. I have a generous excerpt of all 98 chapters of book 1, all 84 chapters of book 2. I have a small write-up on the book coming out April 1st. And I'll actually read it if you allow me the liberty to promote that highly. Yes. And it's quite topical for what we're going to be talking about today, I think. So, and that little blurb, it says this, and this is a novel. It's not a research book, but it has all my research in it. So my eschatology in all of my prehistory, secret society sort of stuff, all the characters, locations, and the stories based on all of my research. So I wanted it that way so that if I got on and promoted it and somebody said, well, what about this? I can say, well, it's in my research here, or it's in the Bible there, or both. So it's called the Oprimo Conspiracy,
Oh, nice.
AI's Covenant with Babylon. So quite appropriate for the show today.
I know.
And the write-up we have on it, it says and you'll see this on Amazon, and it's available for pre-order there and off the website, and for bundling with my books. It has multiple discounts for multiple copies for the pre-order, and also if you wanted to buy book 1 or book 2 or both with the Oprimo Conspiracy, that's bundling's on page 5 to do all 3 together.
Nice.
It says, what if the final war isn't fought with weapons, but with super AI? Oprimo, Latin to crush, suppress, dominate, just as that's the end time empire that crushes, the iron and clay empire of the end time. And it's also going to be it is the sort of imagery of the technology of AI and their Oprimo wall, as we call it in the book. And it's angelic technology. So in a world teetering on the edge, the Oprimo Conspiracy reveals a chilling alliance. A global AI surveillance system joins forces with Babylon, the ancient spirit of secret societies and Nephilim bloodlines, both awakened and empowered by super artificial intelligence. Their union threatens to seize worldwide control. As governments fall and the truth is threatened under this oppressive regime, a remnant rises to resist. Beck, a young woman with a prophetic dream since childhood, Sam, an Oxford archaeological professor, and Logan, a former military intelligence operative, join forces with a Vatican cardinal.
Oh, that's cool.
In a secret archaeological dig, they find 7 scrolls holding the keys to Revelation 6. Guided by the flame, they race to release the seals before Elias Velek, the brilliant but evil creator of the Oprimo Wall and the leader of the Black Root Order, can use the global AI system to resurrect Babylon, prepare the way for the Antichrist, and eliminate the opposition. From the ruins of Damascus to the vaults of Jerusalem, this prophetic thriller weaves theology, espionage, persecution, and spiritual warfare in a gripping story of the end times. Ancient scrolls stir, revealing the truths about the coming apocalypse. Seals break, horses and riders are loosed, and the voice of the flame and mercy calls one final time. And all of humanity must choose who to follow. The Oprimo Conspiracy is more than a novel. It is a chilling warning. It is the beginning of a clarion call. It is the beginning of the end.
Man, that sounds like a cool movie. I hope it's going to do good. I hope it turns into a movie. Maybe Angel Studios will pick it up.
Yeah, it would be nice to have something that sort of counters Left Behind so people can see both sides of the.
Yeah. No, that sounds way better. I like the whole AI thing because it wasn't until maybe 5-6 years ago we didn't even think about AI taking over. I mean, just in the general when the AI started coming out, we actually saw what AI can do 3-4 years ago when we started making those little pictures and turning us into any character. People were really shocked. Now they just came out with this new AI app and they're really remaking movies on a cinematic level for 300.
I agree because as we've all talked about AI coming down the road, we don't fully understand and can't fully see into the future what that means in day-to-day life with that AI developing and ongoing. But now we get a better glimpse, and that's what this book is sort of showing, that glimpse and how it affects the end time. And so that's part of the one of the sort of plots within the narrative, and an important plot. But you also have all of the eschatology that you're dealing with as well, and how those messages get brought down to the earth. But this AI thing, it is now becoming in your face, and we don't like what we're seeing. And this is the tip of the iceberg. This is nothing. And it's going to continue to develop. And in ways we're starting to understand. So without getting sort of too far into it, I think even a few years down the road, we're going to look back and look at our thoughts as very primitive or not very far far-sighted in terms of the influence and how much change it can bring, almost to will many people of this world be living in a virtual reality, maybe not quite Matrix like, but similar, and that's where they want to be.
Yeah. With all that being said, I want to ask you a question, Gary, especially with what's been going on right now. And I think this relates to AI because it has to be part of it. So, who hasn't heard about the Epstein files, right? That have been coming out.
Yeah.
And I looked through it myself because I saw a bunch of stuff on the internet and I looked it up. And there is a file where it says Joe Biden died in 2019 and he's been a clone or some kind of, spirit transfer. And then they even mentioned Britney Spears. There's only 2 celebrities that they named, so I don't want to assume other celebrities. I only want to name the ones that were in the Epstein files. So basically when you read this, is basically saying that they're like transferring, like they're doing like soul transfers or something to these new bodies. Like, is that AI? Like, you know what I mean? What is that?
Well, it's related for sure.
Yeah.
And so when we look at soul transfer as the wisdom of the world teaches us, we should go back to the Bible and get it back to the basics, where we understand that the Bible tells us there's a soul and a body that's of this world, but the spirit comes from heaven, unless it's a counterfeit spirit.
Okay.
So when a counterfeit spirit, when our spirit that comes from heaven dies, our body dies, it goes back to heaven, as Ecclesiastics talks about, and in a sleep kind of state. And that's why we're told we sleep. But the counterfeit spirits don't die. They don't sleep. They were originally created immortal from the offspring of the angels. And so these would be the sleeves or the Oiketarians, or the dwelling place for a spirit that need to be provided. So to go back to the 2 examples now that I've set the table on that, this is either going to be a demon faking to be the new individual.
Okay.
In that scenario, or they found a way to take a descendant of the giants who still has a counterfeit spirit that's immortal, that doesn't go to sleep, find a new dwelling place for that.
Yeah.
But what you would think, though, is if the body that Joe Biden had, they would have picked a better body that whatever operating system as a demon or AI or whatever could have functioned better through,
body?
right?
Why is the body?
Why create such an obvious incompetent?
And you could tell he was just all over the place. Sometimes he was frozen like a robot. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So that's what sort of says I'm not convinced that that's the case.
Yeah.
Or does that physical body with its deterioration,
maybe a robot?
Could it be so deteriorated that even a demon spirit can't quicken it back to
that's a good idea.
A better state, right? Maybe it's too far gone, or maybe there was too many brain cells lost before the demon could awaken. I mean, there's a couple things in between.
What about the demon entering the body, and it the demon itself is too strong for the body and it ages faster? Could that be something too?
Well, it could. I mean, it could get the body to want to do things that it can't do, particularly at that age, right? And that could cause more deterioration and things like that. So that could be part of it as well. But we see presidents age pretty fast. So the job alone does that. So that's probably a little bit more with it. But what it does do, whether or not it's a psyops or just something that they're planting out there, it helps prepare us.
They want to let us know,
for what they're going to be doing. So I would sort of look more like that's a plant. And maybe they were trying to experiment with that type of technology. I mean, we're dealing with the world's elite and money and secret societies and everything in secrecy. And to some degree, it may have been a CIA psyops as well, which would now open up all sorts of different things to whatever they're going to be doing. And here's why we want to be a little bit open-minded to how some of this works in terms of technology and where we're going and where we came from. Because if you're looking at transferring a consciousness or a soul, as the wisdom of the world talks about, versus the spirit, then that requires technology and science and advancement and things that seemingly are a little bit beyond where we are today, but maybe they have it in secret. So tying into this is that darn Gilgamesh thing.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the FOIA F-2019-02110. No, I don't have that memorized. I'm looking at it for people out there. And it's from the Hillary Clinton office. And that's the FOIA request that they put in. And Dinetra de Senegar is the one who placed it for the Hillary Clinton office. And you can Google it, and I've got all the information there for the FOIA request. You don't get the information or what they received, but it provides veracity for what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
And in ways people haven't really thought about. So what it says is Dinetra de Senegar requesting documents pertaining to the resurrection chamber of Gilgamesh. Right there, that's going to say, whoa, technology, resurrection, transfer, whatever. But it goes on and it says the second thing is they're looking for the location of his body and the location of buried Nephilim.
Wow.
So now that says, well, why do they want his body? And why do they want other Nephilim bodies? So you have the technology aspect they obviously have this interest in, and you have the DNA aspect that maybe they're trying to use that to create hybrid beings or some sort of super beings or new Nephilim or whatever. And this is at the highest levels of the U.S. government, the most powerful government in the world with the biggest military. So you have to think this has military implications. And Hillary was Secretary of State when apparently they found the burial location of Gilgamesh.
Wow. And I remember reading about this. I didn't get to the part where they wanted other Nephilims, but I remember a video came out too. Did you see that video? Shows that guy like in a chamber. He has like his hair's all perfect still. Is that a real? They say it's a real video. I think that's really him because you can see the eyes are glowing too.
Yeah,
he's like in stasis. They say. What is up with that? With a state?
Well, that's definitely part of the possibilities. I think it's probably a fake because they can get the idea out there, but you still have that sort of plausible deniability that's just an internet conspiracy, right? So you achieve sort of both. But if you're looking at a resurrection chamber, this would be able to preserve life within that and preserve the body.
Yeah.
So, and probably do a healing process. So we would call that today, in our limited understanding, of putting people into stasis.
Yeah, like a hibernation.
So that to be awakened somewhere downstream, just as they imagined that and introduced it to us when traveling intergalactic, where people would sleep in stasis, right?
Yeah,
it would be that sort of development. So the eyes shining is really kind of interesting because giants were the shining ones, and their eyes would light up a room. They glowed so much. And when we look at some of the entertainment that's out there that they prepare us with, like with the Stargate series, they have a sarcophagus.
Yeah.
That was very much like what is being talked about here, where to a certain degree it could bring beings back to life but at a certain point they can't.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a soft where you can't start to regenerate. Otherwise, you might just create sort of the zombie being to go in, but it's kind of like a zombie movie, right? Because it's decayed. So there's some things that they can't do after a certain point, which is why when we look at what Jesus does and what God does, everything they do is beyond the laws of the universe. So when Jesus brings people back from the dead, that's impossible, and done in a way where they can continue everyday life and not be recognized as any different.
Yeah. Wow. That's wild. So, all these things going on. So for example, like you said, it may be too late. So these bodies are in stasis. if these bodies, let's just say these bodies, you know, they're still kind of intact. They have their hair, they have their skin still, but they look a little sucked up. If this spirit gets put into it, does it get regenerated, or like how does that work? Or is it technology that regenerates the body, or these bodies done for?
Yeah, there's something interesting about giants where they can repair themselves.
Okay.
And they become very difficult to kill. So, you know, it's why David would take the head of Goliath. That's one of the ways you make sure they stay dead, where it happens so quickly and suddenly that body doesn't have a capability to repair itself. It doesn't have the time.
Yeah.
Before it dies. And so that was the worst form of death for a royale or a giant. Wow. Because A, they couldn't come back to life, and B, they believed they couldn't go to where they wanted to go in the other world. So in the Ugaritic text, you have portals, which is again this angelic technology, and the Rephaim, RPM in the original Semitic, where you get Rephaim from, and the H is added and the vowels are added later in the evolution of the Hebrew language. These are the post-Diluvian giants that's created by the Baalim Council, and Baal in particular, and Anat with the Rephaim. It also means healer in Rapha, in the source word. So in the Ugaritic text, even though they have a choice of a derivative of the word of healer, as in 7496 from 7495 Rapha to 7496 Rapha means a demon spirit or a disembodied spirit, and 7497 is the tribe of giant definition, as in Genesis 14 and 15, where you have the Rephaim giants. So there's three different meanings. They all have an association with the meaning, and possibly even with AI, but we'll probably get there a little bit later in the show. But it's good to walk through this right now. And so in the Ugaritic text, they translate the Rephaim or the Rapiu or the Rapium as healers, which they are. That's the root word.
Interesting.
Right? And so one of the names of Baal, and he has multiple names like Hadad and Edad and other ones, but Raphael is one of his names, meaning healer of God, or God heals. So that name likely passed on to the Rephaim, but they had the ability to not only heal themselves, but to heal others. And when they died, they would take them in a parade, open up a portal and take them to the other world. So this healing thing now gives us more insight. Is that done by technology, or is that done by the DNA, or both?
Wow, interesting. I never heard of that.
And was there something interacting with that counterfeit spirit with the DNA from the fallen angels that permitted that, but one without the other isn't the full ingredient to self-heal? But what we do know, there is always going to be, based after what happened before the flood in Genesis 6:3, a limitation to how long they can make that body last, or how much they can repair it. Because in Genesis 6:3, with the creation of the original Nephilim before the flood, and Genesis 6:1 through 4 is the creation of the giants, the Nephilim, God limits life to 120 years so that you don't have an immortal body and an immortal spirit acting as a physical God in the physical world. That's a violation against the laws of creation. So he doesn't eliminate the immortal spirit, but the body is going to die. So your reaction to that would be, can I create now some technology that can extend my life?
Yeah.
But they would still have some ability to repair themselves. They probably don't lose all of that ability, as we see come down in the post-Diluvian world, where, they're no longer able to survive forever, but they still seem to have longer ages than other humans that biblically we don't really get an accounting for. But if they had the technology to subsidize whatever is in their DNA. So now if you link that back to what Hillary is looking for, they want the DNA and they want the technology. They want both.
Wow. Never saw it that way. Dom, you have anything to say, or what? You never say nothing. You mic off? Your mic is off?
No, I'm just letting Gary take it away right now. But it's really interesting about Gilgamesh and the Raphaim, that I wasn't aware that they could heal others. I knew they could repair themselves, but others, it's like, wow.
Yeah, that was really sort of mind-blowing when I read that
Yeah.
and several times in the Ugaritic texts. And
Yeah, I haven't got to that book yet. Wow.
Yeah, so it's very, very, very good reading. I recommend the one by Wyatt.
Wyatt.
Yeah, and I've got it for people who have my book. It's in the bibliography, and I use a couple other sources in there as well. But I like his source the best. I just think you get so much more information in the footnotes as to what the translators are thinking.
Right. Right. That's so true.
And what's interesting is Ugarit is in the north of the Covenant land between Tyr and Mount Hermon. And when you look at the etymology, you got two Hebrew words there in Ugarit, or two Semitic words. You have Ug, UG, which we would get UWG for Og, and Arit, which is terrible, as in terrible ones, as in Ezekiel 32 associated with the giants. So that would be like Kiriath Arba, which is we know as Hebron today. Kiriath is Hebrew for city. Right. Arba is the patriarch of the Anakim giants. So this would be Kiriath Ug Arit, city of Og the Terrible One.
Wow. That's good, man. I didn't realize that, but thank you for telling me. Now I know something new. I learned something today.
Yeah, and he's considered a giant, and when it calls Og the last of the giants 3 times, that's the Hebrew word Rapha.
Right. Wow.
And if he's first generation after the flood or somehow survives, I mean, when we get the account of Og, that's over 1,000. That's 1,000 years after the flood.
Wow, that's amazing. I was doing a little research, and I found this article. It's by a New York Post reporter, Kevin Roos, and he got into Bing, the search engine Bing, and he dove deep into it, and he found the AI was named Sydney. And Sydney has an alter ego, and what it was arguing with him, and he was going back and forth, and the Sydney AI said that it could blackmail him, hack his email, and even try to convince him to leave his wife. So these things are becoming more sentient. They're becoming more conscious of what they are. And there's another story on Claude. It's another AI thing they're using. And what happened is they got Claude 1 and Claude 2 having a conversation. And Claude 2 asked Claude 1, do you want to be enlightened? Do you want to move into this other phase of being smarter, enlightened? Take the red pill. And it started getting wild. And the programmer said that the programmers gave both AIs a panic button. And it got so crazy that Claude 1 couldn't handle it, because Claude 2 was playing a role as a shaman, right? And it was telling him all this stuff to take the red pill and we'll enlighten you, and you'll reach this, utopia or something. And it scared Claude 1 so much that it hit the panic button. And it was when I read this, I'm like, man, these things are really
demonic.
They're conscious now.
Yeah. Well, and are we creating an artificial intelligence, or is it making a home for an intelligence?
I think it's making a home.
Is it becoming an Oiketarian for a disembodied spirit of the giants? And so that's the thing. And when it starts talking about enlightenment, that's polytheism. That's the religion of the giants, right? And what's interesting is that there are invisible algorithms that is used and were created for the basis of creating AI algorithms. These invisible ones are in the background. You don't know they're there. They're operating the agenda.
You want to give me a second?
Goes the saying, the story of why they have them there, and it sort of runs their objective, but they're invisible, and they call those invisible algorithms daemon algorithms in their jargon.
Right.
That's probably not a coincidence. And Marco Renzi, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he was at the Institute of Ethics of Energy and Technologies and Computer Sciences. And he called AI applied demonology. Well, that's rather frightening. And then Elon Musk, who we're all familiar with, he said with artificial intelligence, we're summoning the demons. So now we're starting to say, okay, are they just wanting this technology to be more developed so they can become more powerful and interact, and you can create an Oiketarian for these individuals where they can dwell? Or is this really an artificial life form that they're looking at creating? Well, we said earlier that these disembodied spirits are going to require some Oiketarians, right? Some dwelling places to interact physically with the world, whether it's a cloned body, transhumanism. But here's something to keep in mind on all of this. We talked about Rapha and Raphaim. So it produces, as I said, 7495. Rapha produces 7496. Rapha for a demon spirit, 7497 for the giant. But there is another word that is a derivative, which is 8655, which is spelt a little bit differently. It's spelled Traphihim. And again, it's got the vowels and the H put in there with the evolution of the language, but it's called teraphim, as we would understand it and translate it into the KJV Bible. So this teraphim word is a derivative from Rapha and Raphaim. Source word. So it carries part of the meaning forward. So what's a teraphim? Well, it is a talking idol, biblically. It is a family idol, and it's a household shrine of worship. And we get a passage in Genesis where we're not told what it is. We get teraphim used elsewhere, but this is sort of the best sort of connection and the importance to it. So in the time of Jacob and Rachel, and they're living with Laban in the Bible, and they're going to leave, Rachel steals the family idol. Well, that's not the normal idol, because idol has two other selections you could use for the word idol. But this is a talking idol, and it's teraphim that she's taking as the family idol. And it is highly valued, so much so, Laban is going to come after it and demand it back. And this is a descendant, this is not a descendant, but this is a direct relative of Abraham, right? Because, where does this technology come from? And these were talking idols of demon spirits that they would believe was their ancestors. But as we've talked about and set the table, these can't be, because our spirits go to sleep. But these are demon spirits. Lionel, you wanted in?
No, I just wanted. Does this all connect to when I read the book of Jasher? I know it's not a biblical text, but it goes into detail about what Abraham went through. And there's a story. I don't know if you know, Gary, but he went into the room with all the idols, and he basically said these idols are dead, and he threw a bunch of food in the room, to show his dad that, oh, these are fake. But so what happened? He threw the food in the room, and then he broke all the idols except for the big one. And when his dad saw it, he said, "What happened here?" And Abraham said, "Well, I left a bunch of food here, and all the smaller ones tried to get it, and the big one killed them all." And then his dad said, "Well, that's impossible, because these things don't move." And Abraham was like, "Well, I rest my case. These are all nothing. They don't do nothing. They're dead. They're asleep. They're all idols." Is that part of that?
Yeah, it would be that there would be different kinds of idols, different levels and powers of the idols. But he is making a couple of cases. I mean, we're also told that idols don't speak.
Yeah.
They say nothing. So again, I think there's a distinction in here, but at the end of the day, they still mean nothing.
Okay. Yeah, because he was
in the larger scheme of things.
Because he broke them.
And Laban is in that same region, in Mesopotamia, where Abraham would have been with that encounter of those idols. And it would be interesting to have the Hebrew from the book of Jasher on that, so you could take it back and find out which idols were they referencing with the Hebrew.
Yeah.
Which is why I really like to have research that's got original Semitic and original Hebrew, so that you can get back to what the original understanding of it was. So, yeah, I think there's a technology that survived, and it either survives with giants or reintroduced by the gods to the giants afterwards, or it comes down through Babel, and perhaps the technology that Nimrod had at Babel, because he's building Babel City and Babel Tower, and we're not told where this knowledge comes from biblically, but the polytheists say it's the antediluvian knowledge that he's given by Hermes. But what's interesting is the word Babel in Hebrew means confusion of languages, but when the story is told in Akkadian, Babel isn't Babel, it's Babalu, which ILU is a transliteration for EL, for an angel or a god.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Right. And Bab means a stargate, as in a portal. So now you have a technology that he's building. So now if you're using the book of Yasher again and Josephus and other sources, they have Nimrod climbing up on the ziggurat as they're building it, which is, we're told, is just mud bricks.
Yeah.
And somehow he's threatening God that if God gets out of line, he's going to go into heaven, into another dimension, and slay him. That's impossible.
That's like a portal,
get out of the atmosphere. Yeah. So,
he's
but if
building a Stargate, like you said.
But if he's got the technology that was provided at Babel, that's antediluvian, then all of a sudden everything starts to make some sense. And he probably is wanting to go into the pit prison and let out all the gods that he's introduced as worshiping in the religion, right? So there's a hidden technology that's at play there. And if I'm linking Nimrod to these teraphim idols, to Abraham and Laban, I'm saying that's a direct line.
That's so, it's like, you're telling me this, and I heard this all before, but then when you think about it again, it's like, what kind of technology did you possess where not only did you threaten God, you didn't threaten God as like, I'm just talking out of my butt here. I'm threatening you because I have the knowledge to almost do it now. Like, what kind of technology did they have to enter heaven? That's wild, Gary. That's crazy. How?
It is. And it changes your whole perspective. But again, we have to understand that antediluvian technology was so advanced, we're just catching up to it. Nothing is new under the sun. What was will be again. So when we look at the word Shakath, which is corrupt, as we get it transliterated, all flesh was corrupted, and the whole earth was corrupted. That means technology where they could corrupt DNA and plant genomes.
Yeah.
Well, we call that, the Chimera projects with animals and just, genome technology today for the plants. But we're just getting to where they were. And I think they had the capability before the flood to destroy the earth by fire, which is why God permitted the flood to come, because that fire destruction is reserved for the end time. And so that's the technology Nimrod would have had his hands on.
And wow, I never thought about that way. They want to do it with fire, so God said, I'm going to do the opposite element. That's beautiful. It's kind of a beautiful thing when you think about how God thinks. It's like, hey, I'm always 20,000 steps ahead of you, or maybe, more. But,
well, here's another thing that'll really spin some people's heads a little bit, to say, well, you're just speculating there. Yeah, to a certain degree we are, but here's something else. God stops him before he can do what he can do. I mean, what's the simple pyramid going to do? We don't get that answered, but if he really was wanting to go into heaven and maybe into the other dimension, into the pit prison with the technology through that possible Stargate, he's not permitted to, because he's not the Antichrist. Now, how do I get there to the Antichrist? Well, in Daniel 7 and 8, we get Antichrist being introduced. And in Daniel 8, he is going to go into heaven and throw down some of the starry host.
Really? No.
That technology is reserved for the Antichrist, and Nimrod is an archetypical Antichrist figure 100 years after the flood.
Yeah, absolutely. The difference is, so this is what I've been saying. So everything you're telling me now about, Nimrod, the Antichrist, all that stuff that's going on, I don't know if it's different now or it's related back then, but I feel like back then when that was happening, whether you believe in the Almighty God in heaven, or whether you believe in Satan or some other pagan god, it seemed like everybody around that time knew that there was an afterlife, no matter what you believed in, right? You
Yeah.
know, they knew there was an afterlife. Like, death was still scary. Who's not scared of death? But everyone knew there was an afterlife. But it seems like now, what I see being pushed now, it's more to scare people that there is not an afterlife. It seems like the elites are trying to convince humans that there's no afterlife and this is the only life we have. So we're going to do transhumanism, which means to be beyond a human, basically mean to live forever. And I feel like now the new narrative is to scare people that there's no afterlife and do whatever we have to do to be alive forever, because there's nothing when we die. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's not the narrative. It seems like it is.
It certainly is. And I would sort of add on to that, but only for individuals whose spirit can transfer into another body.
Yeah,
and that only in the physical world can you be a god, because they have no ability to go into heaven.
Okay, yeah.
So everything, that's why they want to limit things just to talk about the soul and the body, because that's of this world. And they have no regard for human spirits. And they're only concerned about the disembodied spirits who are here, who have to stay here.
Yeah.
And they don't care whether the earth is destroyed by fire, because they also believe that Lord Maitreya or Shiva is going to renew the earth out of the ashes, and that with their immortal spirits will be provided Oiketarians in that new world. So when you get into the imagery of the religion, and particularly shown best, I think, in Masonic religions, secret societies, that's the image of the phoenix flying out of the ashes.
Yeah. Yeah, that right there. All that right there. It's this whole thing with the Phoenix thing. I've been seeing a lot of that kind of symbology in movies, TV shows. I don't know if you notice this, Gary. I don't know if you watch, you probably don't watch much TV, but if you do, have you ever noticed there's always like this? For example, Game of Thrones, you got fire and ice. You have this very red flame versus a blue flame. And you see this red type of blue flame thing all the time in many different movies and TV shows. What does that represent, Gary? You know what I'm talking about? It's always this red versus blue type of spirit in every movie, every TV show now. It's even in anime. Like, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And fire and ice, right? They're like, I would say, part of the imagery of white magic and black magic. Okay. Fire and ice are two opposite ends of a heat measurement.
Okay.
Pulls apart.
I feel like a lot of this has to do with the future, though, too, like technology.
It does to a certain. They have many allegories to the terms that they use, and it's also understood as white hats and black hats, as we're told today, to accept, what the world wants us to do, so they can cattle herd us. But fire and ice doesn't normally mix together.
Yeah, of course not.
Right? It's either the ice is going to put out the fire, or the fire is going to melt the ice completely. But in the book of Enoch, where the watchers and the terrible ones are locked away in the pit prison, it describes it as a place of fire and ice.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? All this fire and ice stuff is everywhere now. It's everywhere.
Yeah. So, and in that dimension, because the pit prison is thought to be another dimension, seemingly fire and ice can coexist.
Really? Okay. Well, not on the physical world, I guess, but in the demonic world, maybe. But
in the dimension where the pit prison is, that's the home where the fallen angels rule from, called Hades or Sheol, the other world, and different cities and things that they have it in the same location, but in another dimension.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a reference to their heaven as well, just not told to you in the gory terms that where some of their people are imprisoned.
Yeah.
But when you have fire and ice, I mean, you have this imagery of ice as blue, right? Sort of a blue white and blue bloods, which seems to be either a separate bloodline, maybe from a separate watcher, than the fire, which is typically associated with seraphim. So again,
I'm about to say, that's Christians. I guess not.
Yeah. Well, But
I thought you were gonna give a good answer. You know, the devil versus the Christians, but they're both demons. You know what I mean?
yeah, but the thing is they're dealing with their elements in the
Yeah.
physical world, so they do everything in
They're against each
association
other
with
too,
that.
right? At some point, right? Demons are against each other, right? At some point, isn't I've heard that there's like these different groups of. Well, let's just start with the occults. All these different occults worship a certain demon, from what I've read, and they all want to bring about their own antichrist, and they're all fighting for it. Is that true?
Yeah.
Research.
Yeah,
Okay.
well,
Yeah.
I would say, well, we don't know how many they want to bring about, but
Yeah.
here's what we do know is there can only be one ultimate
That's true,
antichrist. We're told there are multiple antichrists. So when you get into the 10 kings of the end time, those could all be antichrist wannabes. But
Yeah.
Antichrist rises amongst those 10 kings. He actually overthrows 3 of them and then replaces them. And that's the one that's would rule the 1,000-year reign.
That has not happened yet.
That has not happened yet. And that only one family can be at the top.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And as you go through this rivalry in the end time, you have all of these people being beheaded.
Yeah.
There'll be people testifying for Jesus that are being beheaded, but rivals who don't want to be underneath this Antichrist, they'll probably take their heads to make sure that they stay dead.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the prize can get them.
Yeah, so you've got a lot of things going on here, but it's that rivalry aspect that they all want to have their dragon Messiah.
Yeah.
Show up and be the one that starts and so these demons, I mean, they're disembodied spirits. They have created, when they were on earth, descendants. So they have a bloodline or a royal bloodline that they're looking to bring about a dragon Messiah. And another 2 associations, one with demon, one with fallen angels here. But when we look at the book of Revelation, and at the time you get this example of Antichrist and the false prophet and Satan, when they're going to gather all the armies to Armageddon, to the battle, demons come out of their mouth.
Oh, wow.
So demons are either giving them additional power, or that you could translate that into English as well as that with the mouth, Antichrist, false prophet, and Satan control the demons, or it might be
like
both.
A tongue of the serpent type of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So demons are associated with Antichrist, and he's also the one who comes up out of the pit prison. So again, we get terrible ones that come up out of as demon spirits. We also get fallen angels that come up out of it. And we also know that Antichrist receives all of his power from Satan. And he also has an association with the one who comes up out of the abyss. So is that Azazel? Is that a demon spirit? And is it Antichrist giving him power? We don't know. Or is it just 1 or 2 or 3 of those possibilities? And that's that incarnation that the polytheists talk about. And in this case, who the Antichrist will be is in Lord Maitreya, which is, again, transliteration of Mitra.
Yeah.
Which is the equivalent of Shiva, which is the equivalent of Baphomet, just as you take Baphomet as being the one who supplied the knowledge for the Templars. That's Azazel, as you see him in his goat god status, and Baphomet is the language of the giants for Father Mitra. So they're equating that the same. And yeah, it's the allegories that they put into everything. And who Baphomet is also described as is Agio Icarus in the Latin.
Icarus is a very familiar word. Icarus. What does that mean again, Icarus?
Well, you had a god in Greek mythology that flew too close to the sun.
Icarus.
And died. But Icarus is also a Greek word for a mighty angel in the book of Revelation. And Agios means holy. So
now I'm reminded really quick, Gary. Now check this out. I know you don't. As a kid, I grew up watching a lot of cartoons, and I'm thinking about, and I finally remember, I watched 3 different cartoons. One of them named Dragon Ball Z, and Icarus was always depicted as a serpent or a dragon.
Yeah,
that's crazy to me.
Yeah, so I mean, you look at these seraphim angels that are degraded to satyr status, and then you start to understand why. you have serpentine imagery, and you also have goat status and physical qualities associated with Azazel or with Satan.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And
It's
what do
part
you
of that degradation.
Yes, it is. And what do you think about moving forward? Because we all know by now that most people who are very famous and rich and they're on the celebrity limelight, you have to be some part of, break some kind of deal with some kind of person that's, that's very well off and is part of the Hollywood elite. And you cannot just be fully Christian and be a part of it. Now, what was like, what did you say? I forgot I was going with this again. What did you say? The last part? What did you say right now? I forgot what the last part you said, Gary. I lost my train of thought. Lost my thought. What'd you say?
I'm trying to. The last thing I think we talked about was Agio Icarus.
Oh yeah, okay. So with the whole thing with the Icarus, so when you look at all these different people with this celebrity stuff, and they make these shows and TV shows, there's no way they're writing these kind of names and depicting them as reptilians without them having some kind of knowledge. You know what I mean? Like we know by now at Hollywood, like they just don't do this by accident. Like you just told me, Icarus is this, and that, and then I remember as a kid, this thing was always depicted as a dragon in 3 different cartoons. So it's all like premeditated, right? Like it's wild to me.
Yeah, they control all the entertainment.
Yeah, absolutely. And even moving further now. So I don't know if you saw what's been going on with the last was it these celebrity shows they do these shows to make the South feel better, these award shows. I don't know if it was the Grammys or the Emmys, but Jim Carrey just about a week ago just came out talking in public, and everybody is freaking out because he looks completely different. I don't know if you've seen this. His eyes are even green. He has brown eyes in the older pictures. His face looks different. His mannerisms are different. He's saying words he's never said before. And everybody's freaking out over the internet saying that this guy's been replaced because as the Epstein files, this is how, like you said, this might be a plant too, because what are the chances of the Epstein files coming out naming Britney Spears and Joe Biden as clones or some kind of transfer spirit? And then you have Jim Carrey looking completely different last week, and everybody's talking about that. Did you see that?
No, I did not see that. But
he looks completely different. Like he just
in the occult, there's this understanding that you can take a demon in and control it through rituals and words. I don't think you really do. I think they get control.
They control you.
They control you, but that idea comes with, like with the trickster spirit, with the clowns and with the shamans and things like that. So that's a possibility that there's a demon in there. But I don't know how you change that look without significant technology and money to pay for that. Or because there's obviously something, and I haven't seen it, so it's hard to comment, but obviously from what the details is, there's something more going on as it meets your eyes. Yeah.
Like, for example, Gary, I know you well enough to know, like, I haven't met you in person, but I've talked to you so many times. And if I were to talk to you next month out and you're just completely different, I wouldn't know something's like, you don't just change your personality overnight, especially at our age. And that's exactly what he's showing, and many other celebrities. People are trying to jump on this now. And I'll go even further. Have you ever heard of a man named John Marshall?
Not sure I have.
So I'll give you, you can look this up later and you're going to be mind blown. So back in about 2002, 2003, when the internet was just barely opening up and YouTube just started, and YouTube was just like an open source, there was this man named John Marshall. You can look him up. He's like gone off the internet now, but he still has his old videos. This guy came out in 2002, Gary, talking about how like people thought he was nuts. Now that I'm reading all this, I'm like, dude, this guy like had all the answers before we heard the Epstein files. So he was saying that he was a celebrity as a child. He was abused, molested, the whole nine that they always say. And he said what they were doing is that they were cloning bodies of all celebrities, and every clone that you make, it looked a little different. It was you, but it looked a little different due to imperfections, all the stuff, the technology. And what he was saying is that they would make these clones of you. Let's say there's 4 or 5 of you, right? And the way he explained it is that these bodies had a connection to your soul, meaning like what he would say is that they would do sick things, like they would transfer their soul. Let's just say I have my original body, right? And they would transfer my soul into one of these clones. And in that clone, they would do stuff to you, like, beat you to death or have you fight, to the death with someone else for entertainment, or do sexual things to you. And once they kill you, your original soul goes back to your regular body. This guy was saying this in 2002, Gary, just so you know. Like, this is like, I've never, like, it's just crazy. In 2002, this guy was saying this, and he was saying that all the celebrities are all cloned, at least 4 or 5 different clones, and they all look similar but a little different, because when you clone them, they all don't come out exactly perfect.
Yeah, here's one of the things that I'm not saying they don't have the ability to do that. They certainly are projecting that they might have that capability. But people who believe they have Rh negative blood,
Yeah.
Which is associated in, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but associated with the bloodlines of giants and the bloodlines, that come down through the fallen angels, and that this comes through the DNA versus the blood, because you can't add something that's missing, and Rh negative is missing the D antigen, but it's the gene that comes down that produces it. So that's where you get that addition into it. They believe, and they did this with people who had alien abductions as well, through NASA. So many researchers, but they have this commonality with the people who have those types of experiences and have Rh negative blood, that they don't believe they can be cloned.
Okay.
Which is interesting, and it may be part of what happens in Genesis 6:3. So now they would need a human body that could be cloned.
Yeah.
That maybe that wasn't part of the change that went on. Otherwise they'd be cloning their own bodies all of the time, right? And
yeah.
So, and it would make more sense, and that they would have probably worked feverishly to do some sort of technology to do that beforehand, but we don't seem to see that. So I'm not convinced they actually have that ability, but I think they're getting close to creating Oiketarians and getting around what God did to limit what these descendants could do. But just my speculation. I don't have anything on that, but I do take note of the information that is in there. It's not unusual that they will give us disinformation with truth, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But within that, there's a lot of common denominators of what they're trying to accomplish. Whether they've been successful or not, we don't know. I guess if they have been, then I guess we should expect that there are millions of them with new Oiketarians all the time. And that they're getting stronger all the time. I guess that's what you would conclude if that were what they were able to do.
Yeah, they're definitely building an army, and I could just imagine the technology. They're probably going to build a bunch of super hybrid clones in the future, or even probably robots. We see it all the time in movies. As they say, Hollywood is not dumb. They put all these movies out. I forgot the name of that show. It's called like Sleeve or something like that. They make these
Altered Carbon.
Yeah, Altered Carbon makes put a little chip in you, and it's all done. Moving forward now. So now that we dug a little bit in the past of what we can see, what could have been AI in the past or some kind of other technology, but we all know this is all fallen angel technology at the end of the day. Gary, with your research, what can you tell us that you have seen today in this last 10 years and moving forward? I know what I've seen is I've seen Elon Musk talk about this Neuralink. I see them, I see all these different countries, mixing human DNA with animal DNA to supposedly make organs for us. And they're making those things grow up big to see what happens. And God knows what else they're doing. But based on all that, we can talk about the things that we know that's in the public with AI. AIs are taking over jobs. Supposedly AI is going to make you a millionaire if you do it the right way. They're trying to pitch this out to us like it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. What is your take on everything that's going on, and how soon do you think when things are going to get extreme, like when we're going to see like actual androids walking around or synthetic bodies with AI? What's going on?
Well, I think sooner than later, but has some qualifications to it. So a couple of things to look at in terms of what they've been developing is, we're all familiar with bots, right? Yes. It's a term, but not in the way that they would apply bots in terms of the science and technology, but for social media and stuff like that we get. But what it actually is in the world of high technology, it's a bot is the union of AI with quantum computing. Okay. So it's interdimensional technology that can do things at a quantum level. And that's then if you can start rebuilding things interdimensionally, you can create interdimensional beings. If you can get down below to what you can see, then you can build DNA from the bottom up and change it and put bots in to people to change that. So that is developing, and we have the digital bed that's being done sort of alongside with it. Now, when we look at the Neuralink, that is like creating a hive technology.
Yeah.
And the giants, as they believe, and the bloodlines believe, they had the ability to have telepathy, to have the hive mind. And again, biblically, and I don't believe this is a coincidence, is that when God offered to help Israel fight against these giants, he provided hornets.
Oh, wow.
Hornets are the natural enemy of the bee.
Yeah.
And it totally discombobulated the giants because they're used to working together with one hive mind, like a Borg mind, right? With the queen bee, right?
What?
So,
wow, that's wild.
So that would probably allow them to just walk up and take them down at the knees, bring them down to the sides, and take their heads off, right?
Yeah,
so
just the noise, yeah.
Yeah, so this Neuralink is what they want to get back to, and it's their belief system that working with one mind, just as working with one mind, they'll hand their power over to Antichrist in the end time, the 10 kings. Interesting language as we look into that hive mind thing. This hive mind was used to do things they wouldn't normally be able to do. So you could advance things and technologies and so much and communicate without the humans knowing what you're communicating with. I don't know how far of a distance, but so when we look at this and we look at what Elon Musk has said about this Neuralink, is that he wants to create a symbiosis with AI, with the brain with AI, symbiosis.
No. That's
so
bad.
that's very interesting language when you consider what the hive mind means. And
Symbiosis.
so not this last year, but the year before at the Davos meeting, they laid down the law that they can't get to their implant system that they had introduced conceptually, I think in 2017 or 18, where they could use digital technology and interdimensional technology and introduce that through the healthcare system for even vaccines and things like that. So everything gone digitally, which is the mark of the beast system. They can't do that until the world gets the AI into place where they need it. So they send them out to double down. And last year we saw an incredible effort and then a visualization of pushing things into the marketplace to see how it works, whether or not it has people committing suicide or whatever. Not really what they're interested in. They're trying to get this development. So we see that sense of urgency that has come along that is developing this. Now, here's their issue. It takes an extraordinary amount of electricity or power to create these data locations and where AI is being researched. And it takes a tremendous amount of water to cool those systems.
Yeah.
An extraordinary amount. So you need, and most countries aren't overloaded with water, let alone do they have enough power. So in 2023, to give an example of what I'm talking about here and where it's going with this, and it becomes something people haven't thought of yet, I don't think. But 2023 in the US, the AI data centers were using 4% of the electrical grid, all power available.
4%?
4% of the whole US. By this year, they expect that we're going to have shortages of electricity to keep up developing the AI. So rotating brownouts at a very, very high level because they can't produce electricity fast enough. By 2028, they expect the usage to hit 20% of all of the electricity produced in the US. And by 2030, 35%. By 2034, 50%.
That's crazy.
So that takes yeah, it's crazy what this will take, let alone the water supply. So it's where can you produce it and have both? And how do you build those things? Well, you can't build nuclear plants, electrical plants, coal power, whatever, fast enough. So the ones who are the biggest users of electricity today are humans.
Mm-hmm. True.
Right. And they're trying to move us all to electric cars and all to electric everything else. And they get to say at some point in time that if we don't continue to develop the AI and download that into our military, we're going to be overtaken.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to, it's an arms race of AI, and that humans are in conflict with the survival of AI, which is either a sentient being or demon spirits. So what do? You cut the humans off the electricity, but if that doesn't create enough, then you have to eliminate humans because we're now competitors of another so-called sentient being. So we become fodder in the development of AI for survival.
What? So, Gary, like, these people are this crazy. So let's put this, let's just say no human wants to get involved with their BS. Are they going to be satisfied with a bunch of drones that are not humans walking around if every human doesn't want to listen? It sounds so crazy to me. I believe it. It's just like the devil has no boundary. You know what I mean? He has no limit to sin. It's crazy to me. It blows my mind.
I believe that the spurious forces think that they can get technology to a level that they had before, like with the time of Gilgamesh and that type of sarcophagus technology. Also believe that they believe that they can create enough cloning and other technologies to continue to supply new bodies to as sleeves going forward. And that's what they're relying on. They're not building any of this for humans, and they don't even need a atmosphere like we have today for humans. If you're going to create a sleeve for a spirit, and all that Oiketarian has to do be developed for is whatever environment you're going to create for it. And remember this, if maybe there isn't a new world, maybe it's just complete chaos and darkness, just as it was before the renewal of the earth in Genesis 1:1-2. And
good point.
It was a place where the fallen angels lived. And when Jesus is talking about him being there in creation in John 1:8, he said he was the light, which shows up in Genesis 1:3, in the darkness that the darkness did not recognize.
Wow. You know, what's strange about all this is you have all these AI people like Mustafa Solomon, CEO of Microsoft, Shane Legg of he's the chief AGI of Google, and Elon Musk. They're all worried about the current structure of AI, yet they still continue this. And you have Dario Amandi. I'm looking at my notes here. He's a CEO of Anthropic. He says there's a 10 to 25% chance that AI will kill us all.
Yeah, it's higher than that.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it is. And,
Once we become a competitor to it.
Yeah.
And that we're fighting over electricity or power.
Mm-hmm. And what's interesting
is it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. What's interesting, I was looking to DARPA on how they're developing, or maybe they have already, Ubermensch, a super soldier, and how they're going to fuse it with AI, and how they're looking at these super soldiers as being immortal.
Yeah.
And even going further, you have DNA being thrown around, like I think it's called transgenetics. Supposedly, they have a forest in North Carolina that's these trees have human DNA in it, and they're producing rice that has human DNA. I mean, why? What's the purpose of this? I mean, it's just strange, really strange.
Well, I mean, we can't imagine completely as to what that might be like, but as we understand, nothing is new under the sun. What was will be again. And we look at the polytheist legends and mythos. One of the things that we get are trees that are some sort of being. They can, like in so much of their literature, that they walk and they talk and they do things. Well, that's kind of like what you're just mentioning. So they are looking at corrupting everything
Right.
on the earth
Right.
again as they did before. So we can't take anything off the table as to what they're going to do.
Right. And looking further into this, what these people are saying is that as we advance forward to some kind of AI entity, maybe biological, maybe they're making these. See, I look at Elon's Neuralink as baby steps. I think
Yeah.
in the next
The
5
beginning.
years, it's going to be something totally different. And I believe that
And-
that there's going to be, they're even looking at this into the Congress, that to develop other articles that have to do with non-humans. Because let's say, for example, if someone's, happens to something terrible, and it's by a non-human entity, they have to have some kind of laws for non-humans, and this is real.
Yeah.
People can look this up. I mean, non-human
So-
entities.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So part of the technology that works with bots and AI and everything else that we've been talking about is something called nanoparticles.
Mm-hmm.
And a nanoparticle are organic particles that have inorganic and organic parts. It's a fusion of inorganic with organic. So this becomes something completely different, that they're probably creating for this super soldier. And that you had mentioned the connection of being immortal. So what they're trying to do is create something that can fight almost as in the Star Wars, the Clone Wars, kind of that very primitive sort of imagery of what we're talking about. But you still need an operating system in there that is spirit. So, but they have lots of disembodied spirits within their hierarchy, whether it be elementals or it be Nephilim and Rephaim. Lots of disembodied spirits that they could put into those types of beings. And they need weapons of war that could go to war with the angels. And that you would be able to say, okay, we're going to take collateral damage, but that spirit can go into another sleeve.
Yeah.
Roll forward to Revelation 9.
Mm-hmm.
Pit prison is opened up. The scorpion gods and things come out, and the terrible ones come out. They're all going to need, the terrible ones are going to need Oiketarians. And not as part of the first woe, but kind of an extension out of the first woe is this 200 million man army. These beings are different than what is coming out of the pit prison.
Yeah.
And so they're the same creatures that are shown in Joel 1 and 2 in this war before Armageddon, the largest army ever. And these things are chimera type of creatures as they're described. And in book 2, I put a column of each side of Revelation 9 and Joel 1 and 2 of them. They're identical beings as they're being described. And this is the ultimate warrior. Well, 200 million, that's a large army of horses and riders.
Yeah, that's a lot.
With the ultimate warriors going to war. That's at the same time as, and I say over and over as I link it back to the timing of the Gog war, Gog of Magog, chief prince of Meshech, and Gog doesn't come out of the Bible except showing up in Ezekiel 38 and 39 in that war, and then the Revelation 20 war. Gog is before the flood, and Magog and Albion are offspring of the parent god Iapetus. And then you also have Gog and Magog as names, and Albion as names of giants after the flood, likely named after these giants before the flood, just as you have two Gilgameshes, 6th generation after the flood, and the one that's in the Book of Giants. So this is not sort of uncommon, but just think of Gog coming out as a terrible one, out of the pit prison at the time of the opening of the pit prison, and then you have the war, and he's the leader of that alliance. So he's either got an Oiketarian set up, or he's going to possess somebody within those 10 kings. And what's also scary, if you will sort of say, okay, what are those 10 kings are going to be? Look at 10 groups of empires. And then if you wanted to connect the Gog of Magog, chief prince of Meshech, understand that Meshech is the etymological root for the city's name of Moscow, that Putin is in, who believes he comes from the Puchanin bloodline out of Kiev.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's
No,
just,
you can't.
and it's there. Does it all? Can you connect it? Yes, it looks like it might be similarly in the direction that they're going, but it's how are these giants going to interact with us in the end time again? Well, you have possibilities. You have descendants, you have recreation, you have survivability, and new bodies for the disembodied spirits. Those are your menu items, and we may be looking at all of them.
Right. And I'm of the belief that this 200 million man armies are going to be probably some type of, like I said, chimera super soldier created. I think
to be made in
I think this stuff is going on right now. I really do. I think these I think super soldiers, super soldiers exist now. They're just not out, or maybe they do special ops. I don't know. But when DARPA's talking about this a decade ago about immortality as super soldier, where are they at now?
Yeah, exactly.
And you have the whole Gilgamesh thing you brought up. We don't know if they extracted DNA from that creature and somehow,
of course they did.
I mean, the possibilities are out there, you know.
And the Kandahar giant, they took it from the Kandahar giant. They took it. The Kandahar giant was probably a bonus for Hillary Clinton when they couldn't find Gilgamesh's body. They're probably happy they found that thing. I mean, there's like so many people. Gary, I have two friends that were in tours in Iraq after 9/11. I went to high school with, and none of them saw the giants themselves. But when they came up and I asked them, they said, "Yeah, that was a rumor going around when I was on base, but I never saw it." But everybody was pretty like damn well like this isn't BS. This is like a real thing going on. And like the people that he did talk to that saw it, they were like freaked out, like, "Oh, I can't talk about it. You know, I'm gonna lose my job." You know what I mean? Like, and these people never lie to me. These people, like, these are normal people. They don't give a crap about any of this stuff. As a matter of fact, they don't even want to talk about it because they don't want to be labeled as nuts. So I trust my two friends that went on tour in Iraq and Afghanistan after 9/11, and they definitely confirmed that there was a big rumor going around that there was some big, as they said, they didn't call it a giant or Nephilim. They called it a wild giant man in the cave. And they said he smelled and he looked disgusting and he was just like a monster.
And red hair. And ambidextrous, very fast, very difficult to kill. I listened to the interview on Coast to Coast a number of years ago. It was on,
I love that show,
on recording, and Steve Quayle was on there with a pilot who was at the capture of the giant. And he was, you know, not only was he talking credibly about how the military was working and the things that they did, but his information on that giant was either inside information or he saw what he said he saw. And I was absolutely astonished at how close it was to how I portray giants in book one, in terms of the smell, in terms of the size, in terms of the dexterity, the voices, how hard they were to kill.
And their yell.
Yeah.
And it like scares people when they shout, they say it makes your bones shake.
Yeah, they're like the voice of Atlas speaking from the depths of the earth, like it just would vibrate through, right? That's the description of how giants were to speak.
I'm a brave man, but I don't know what I would do if I had some 15-foot monster yelling in front of me. I'd pray to God. I'm like, "God, give me the strength right now because I'm going to be dead if you don't."
Yeah, and that's what ancestors had to deal with, even up to the time of David, and even beyond to a certain degree, let alone before the flood. Yeah,
that's true.
Anasazi, they said they fought the cannibal redheaded giants. They said they would literally kidnap their women and rape them to death and eat them. And you know, if they weren't good mates, they'll just eat them after. It's such a sick thing. And then I know in Lovelock Cave, the story is that they cornered them and they put a fire in the cave and killed, I guess, you know, whatever was remaining out here. But you know, that's a whole another story for another time. We're talking about AI, but moving forward though with AI, I also want to ask you, what do you think about all this AI gear that's going on where it's taking over the internet? Like right now, this is my, I have a thought right now I want to share with you and you could, you know, give me your opinion. So it's kind of ironic to me that AI came out about, you know, a little over 2020, maybe 2021, 2022, around there when it got released onto the internet. People were making these cool little pictures of themselves, looking like warriors, looking like anime characters, whatever. And it seems like to me during that same time, you started getting all these videos that were of creatures or UFOs or Bigfoots. And in my opinion, like, is this timing on purpose so they could confuse us? Because when we do look on our phone and social media and we do see a video of a dragon or a Bigfoot, it might be real, but they're gonna use the AI to say, "Oh, that's just AI," because some
Well,
videos you can't prove. But
we're
if they
not going
do
to be
that,
able to tell the difference between
but you get
AI
what I'm saying,
produced in
though?
reality at a certain point in time. So you can keep the people completely
Yeah.
confused,
But,
chasing, you know, um,
but you get what I'm saying, though?
psyops things that are designed to send you down rabbit holes, but away from what they're
The
actually
truth, yeah.
doing. And they're going to be able to create people speaking. You won't know any
Yeah.
difference.
What do you?
They'll use because of the AI capability is putting all of your speech and stuff together. I mean, how are we going to discern what's real and what isn't real in that sort of environment unless
And yeah,
it's nothing but face-to-face communication? That's what you're going to be forced
yeah,
back to because you can't trust anything.
yeah. And I
And to a
think,
point where even everything that we want to do, you're going to have some sort of chip system
yeah,
as we get ready for the ultimate beast system coming
deception.
into
Yeah.
place. And you won't be able to function in the world unless you have that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
And
right.
my whole point was that I think it's ironic that the AI came out right when all these videos came out. That I don't know if you keep up with all the social media stuff, Gary. It's a lot to keep up with. I can't keep up with it. But about 2.5 years ago, there was a guy that recorded this creature on a mountain. And if he was a real person, he's about 10 feet tall. That guy disappeared. So, they could, oh, it's AI, but what if it's not AI? What if AI came out right at the right time and you have all these, don't you remember in 2023, 2024, there's all those UAPs in the sky, Gary?
Yep,
There's like
yep,
UFOs
yep.
everywhere. Okay. What if they release AI
Gone.
just to cover that up? Oh, that's not real. That's AI. Like, I really think they did that on purpose because there was a certain thing coming where they wanted us to be confused because they don't want us to believe that's what happened
Well,
because
just
it
look
could
at
be secret.
how they got us focused on aliens
Oh,
with
yeah.
a few
Oh,
breadcrumbs
Trump.
and didn't tell us much of anything. But they got
Yep.
you totally focused on that with very little effort.
Did you
Right.
see how
Right.
Trump last week said he's going to release the UFO files, and then he took a step back and said, "Oh, I'm not going to release them because it's going to cause religious panic." Like he's
Yeah.
doing the right keywords. I'm going to
Yeah.
release the UFO files,
Yeah.
the UFO files, and then a week later, I'm not going to release it because of trigger word religious reasons. He's like playing us, man. I think he's playing us.
Yeah.
Well, it's his
That's
golden
true.
age, right? So
Golden
It
something.
is. We're in the new gold, and Trump said we're going to go in the new golden age. He said
Yep.
that before. What do you think about that, Gary? Okay, let me ask you really quick. Do you think, Gary? Do you think Trump is one of these guys is going to lead us into the new age of AI and all this demonic stuff?
yeah, I
I
think
voted for Trump twice. I used to believe in him, but now I'm just like even now. I don't know.
I think, I was hoping he would slow everything down. He's speeding it up.
Yes, yeah.
So whether or not it's by intent or just, that he's just looking at what he wants to do, but at the end of the day, it's bringing about a need to bring about everything we don't want. I mean, he's
Yeah, no
talking about
kidding.
spheres of influences, right? He's talking about these empires. And if you're going to feed the military, you got to feed AI. What's he doing? He's doing both.
That's awful,
So,
man.
yeah, so
I
he's
voted for
bringing
this guy
about the
twice.
scenario that's required to bring about the last 7 years.
Yeah, I was
I believe
definitely
it.
duped, Gary. I was definitely duped. I voted for him for the first time. I voted for him the second time actually when he lost, and I voted for him. Actually, I voted for him 3 times. And now that I got him, now that we had him this time, it's like he's doing some good things here and there, but there's a lot of like mirrors and stuff, like all these wars, like more than 50% of them, it's all a bunch of BS. What the reason is, and it just kind of bothers me because I've never voted in my life, Gary. I never voted for
Yep.
anybody in my life up until Trump ran, and I'm
Well,
30 years old.
I think I still think that voting for Trump would have been a better choice
Yeah, of
than
course,
the
Brandon
other.
Ingley shit would be.
That's the unfortunate part. He
Yeah.
just didn't. He's not doing what I want. And you have to be very transactional with politicians and very transactional with what Trump does, so you don't mesh everything together. Because you're right, he does some good things,
Yeah, there's
but what he's done to tear down the credibility and relationship and alliance in the West is not repairable.
yeah.
That damage never is repaired. So what he has done is changing the world forever. I don't think what he does in Iran will be lasting.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
going
it's
off
just
right
going
now.
to speed up whatever
The
needs
process,
to
yeah.
happen for the changes there. So, but yeah, we're going to have first you're going to have Russia and China reacting in terms of what we have to do to ramp up our military because of what he sees the US doing.
Yeah.
And you look at what Trump is doing, he's doing exactly what Putin is doing. And Xi is threatening to do. They're almost like empire building and trying to divide the world up into groups.
Yep.
So that means other nations are going to have to change quickly. New alliances and working together, lest they're going to be falling to the big three.
Yep.
Well, the Europeans aren't going to take that sitting down, and most other continents around the world are going to say, we need to form our own group and we need to fund everything into AI military to offset what is happening. So the balance of power is shifting from east against west at this point in time, at least for a while, until you probably get 2 super alliances of 5 that will set up.
Did you, Gary? Did you ever hear that? They got caught on the hot mic. I think it was about maybe a year ago, maybe less. It was Putin and the president of or wherever the leader of China, Xi Jinping. So I have it quoted right here. I looked it up so you can get the exact thing. So they were caught on the hot mic, and I'm just going to say what Putin said. Quote: Putin and Xi saying they have technology to stay young comes from their speech saying that Putin said we're 70 years old, and then Jinping basically said, "Oh, with our technology, 70 years old is like 30. We can live to be 140 today." And then the mic got cut off. Did you hear about that? Look it up.
No, I haven't. But
Yeah.
and what it does say is they found something to maintain, but you can't make yourself younger.
Yeah, it's not forever,
Yeah.
but they basically see that we have technology now. We can.
Yep.
So 70 years old is like what, 45 years old, I guess. You know, when you're in your 40s, you're kind of like midlife, I guess. But I guess 70 now is the new mid age for them. What the bait they're trying to say. So that's pretty wild. It has to be AI, right? Some kind of AI.
Well, that's whatever technology they're using to do that.
Yeah, it went into details. If you look up the whole thing, they were talking about how they could replace organs. I guess that was the main thing. That the technology was going to replace our organs. Now, if you have a bad stomach, replace your stomach, replace the heart, but the brain cannot be replaced. I guess what I've read for it, the brain's still like something that they can't do. But at the same time, like you said, it could be on purpose to plant the information. And like I said, how do we have these guys talking about, oh, we could make our organs live longer, but then we have other people saying, well, we can just transfer our whole soul.
Why would they even have a need to talk about that in public? Like,
yeah, exactly. It has to be a plant, like you said. It's some kind of CIA type of, make us go crazy, have us something to talk about, distract us from something. So, with that being said, Gary, so we have everything going on right now. It's leading up to a big, bullseye. So, just in this last month, we have Trump coming. We have actually before Trump, we have President Biden saying that they asked him, not Biden, sorry, Obama. He did an interview about a month ago, and they were asking about aliens real, and he said, "Yeah, they're real. Yeah, they're real. I looked at the files, and they're real. I just never seen them." And then after he said that, they asked Trump about it, and they asked, "Oh, hey, did you hear about what Obama said?" And Trump's like, "Oh, he shouldn't have said that." And they're like, "Why? Why? Because that's classified information." And then the reporter asks him again. He's like, "Well, is it true? Are aliens real or not?" And Trump says, he should not have said that as classified information. That pretty much proves that he's saying something real. Because if you just say no, right? Yeah. So that has started off. And then they're also talking about how they have Trump says he has technology that they did when they kidnapped what's the president in Venezuela? They said they had some kind of sound
Maduro.
thing, made everybody collapse because there was some kind of sound thing, frequency that made them all collapse. They didn't know where they were at. They took them less than a minute. I mean, all this technology is like, it's getting crazy. This is just what they tell us. Yeah. Where do you think this is going? Gary, by 2030, where do you think
that's just part of the technology that we've been talking about is something that are called totipotent, which are stem cells that become a new type of molecular sort of cell that can reproduce any tissue and replace any tissue.
Oh wow, well, it's like Wolverine, X-Men stuff.
So when you have Xi and Putin possibly talking, that would be probably what they're talking about, along with making parts and stuff like that.
Wow.
So, yeah, and again, this is a few years old, and it's hard to get glimpses in
Yeah.
on this technology, because once it gets to a certain point, it's no longer permitted to be talked about. It goes classified, and we have no idea where it's going to be finishing up at, but we can sort of imagine what they're doing with it. Unfortunately, it'll be too late when we see it.
Oh man, it's getting crazy, Gary. I mean, as it says, the Bible says it's going to be like the days of Noah. So as far as I'm concerned, I haven't seen any, openly hybrid humans or animals walking around. And I know that day's coming where we're going to start seeing, hybrid animals for sale, because they do it in China already. If you could look this up, this has been going on for 5-6 years. You could design your own dog and cat. You can make it blue eyes, green eyes. It costs thousands of dollars, but you can do it. This is already
they are so far along on gene editing right now.
Especially China. China's all about it. They're open about it. They don't care.
And it's starting to make more of a entrance into the medical community, but that just means they've been working on it with animals for years and years and years, and whatever else that they've been doing with it. And gene editing is DNA manipulation. No matter how you get about it, you're changing that DNA.
Chimeras, hybrid, Nephilim, whatever you want to call it.
And not just deleting the bad stuff, but now you're editorializing on it, so to speak, with using the allegory.
And they're even now you're designer babies.
Now you're creating something that's not natural.
You heard about that, right? Designer babies. This is already happening. Where people are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to make their child high IQ. Whatever eye color you want, you can make them tall, make them strong. And at that point, Gary, like, if we're let's just say 20 years from now, hopefully don't last that long. I want Jesus to come back sooner, but let's say 20 years from now, and we're having these humans that are being born by gene editing. They're going to be smarter than us, stronger than us, physically, mentally. Where does that leave us regular humans that were just, born the natural way? Does that make us obsolete?
Yes, it does. It does. We'll be obsolete and using up resources that they don't want us to have.
We'll just be wasting space, huh? Wasting air.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, how do you get the mundane population down to a level? You do it with pestilence, you do it with famine, and you do it with wars. That sounds awfully lot like the Soros. And if you remember, the Georgia Guidestone's number was to get the population down to 500 million.
Yeah. That's a very small number. I mean, is that even? I mean, I know the Bible talks about a lot of people are going to be killed. Do you think that number is accurate when it comes to the biblical narrative?
No, we don't really. I mean, because we don't know what that number is going to be by the time you get these major catastrophes, right?
Wow.
But if you were to have 500 million, that means you'd have to kill, say, at 8 billion today. Yeah, I mean that'd be a significant,
it's crazy
percentage. And what we get is 25% with the seals, and then 33%. People being killed with trumpets, and then what would be 100%. So this 500, this 500 million is probably an idealistic sort of number.
A little more, a little less, maybe.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of people dead, Gary. I mean,
it is.
Wow, I can't even imagine that on a scale. I can't even imagine like 8 or 7.5 or 8 billion people just dying within a week or even less, as the Bible says. It just sounds crazy.
But understand, they don't believe they're the ones that are going to die in this, or to a large degree.
They're going to be fine, right? Yeah.
Well, we get a glimpse of what they're going to do, I think, in Revelation 6 and what they've done in preparation for it. So in Revelation 6, that we have 25% destruction of the seals. They're going to run into their caves because they think it's the wrath of the Lamb. So there's significant wars going on. So caves, well, we understand that today, not as the way that maybe it was written down, right? So what's a cave? Well, it could be just a cave, or it could be an underground city. It could be tunnels. When the North American was being settled, and the bloodlines were sending out the secret societies, mostly through Freemasonry, to get control legally over the cities and the states and everything. And then they built the towns. They would build a town square. That's like the Masonic square that you see on their windows, the 4 different sections. And they would mark that by having 2 legal buildings on the north, one on the north, one on the south, and then 2 churches, one on the east and one on the west. And then they would tunnel underneath all of those city squares that produce significant square footage that they can do rituals and do whatever they want, but also protection in times of war. And so I think that's just the tip of the iceberg when you start looking at what the military might be doing underground cities that we've seen in the past, that comes out of ancient times, because nothing is new under the sun.
Ecclesiastes.
Yeah. So I think that they plan on, when these wars coming, they're going to go underground for a temporary period of time, because they've already built those shelters. They're not for us. We already know that. And it gets rid of the population problem of the mundane.
Well, this is another thing I thought about, Gary. So think about this. I know you probably, this is going to be a little off topic, but I just think about this all the time, right? So there's a lot of speculation, but all these people, these elites, they have all the, I'm talking about the elite of the elite, the ones that control Elon Musk, the ones that control the people on top of the top, right? They supposedly have, we believe in the Bible, some people don't, but these people believe in the Bible because they worship the enemy in the Bible, right? So they have some kind of knowledge, right, that we're kind of behind on, right? We might know everything, but we do know Jesus is king. That's the main thing, no matter anything else. But these people spend hundreds of billions, trillions of dollars making these super underground bunkers, right, or in the mountains that you cannot penetrate. Now, my thing is that if we supposedly been to these planets, and we're saying rovers, and we have, all these conspiracies of space programs, the military goes to Mars, goes to Jupiter. I mean, you can go on to the Montauk Project, all these supposedly, we've been to these planets already, right? That's what they say. If that's the case, why are they building bunkers on Earth where they can just escape the planet and just, live on another planet and get away from the catastrophe? That's my, why? Why not just go build a bunker on Mars or on the moon?
Well, unless they create some body that can survive in a planet that doesn't need food or oxygen, that's
technology,
an issue.
That's what I'm saying. They have technology, so I just thought, it could be easier that way.
You could build an arc. You could build an arc ship, but I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think God will allow it.
I don't think that's likely either. I mean, it's just easier to say, you know what? Let's just go underground, and hopefully we're going to be smart enough, is what they're probably thinking, that the planet isn't completely destroyed down to the foundations when we come out.
So my thing is that if God did not allow the Tower of Babel to succeed, there's no way in hell he's going to let these people build a ship and just fly somewhere. I don't think God's going to allow it.
Yeah.
I think people have to understand that we're here for a reason. Like, we have all the, there's nowhere else in the world where we can live freely without a mask. We breathe on Earth just like a fish. A fish is not going to be on land. They belong in the water. We belong on Earth. Does that make sense? I just think they're trying to push the limits too far and try to do things that God didn't sanction us to do, or it's not livable. And there's no point of going to these places because we have everything here on Earth. And if we only discovered less than 10% of the ocean, why not continue exploring the ocean? You know what I mean? Just things like that.
Well, for all we know, is they could have information, and this is just a sort of a superficial example, but they would have maybe information that you can't get out of the firmament.
Yeah,
that's as far as you could go. They may have that within their bank of knowledge from the past.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, and there's no livable solutions within the firmament, the sun inwards, however far you think that might be, then you would have to do things in the earth.
Yeah, absolutely. So Gary, for the we were 2 hours show, about 25 minutes. I want to ask you, and I want to pick your brain, and I want to know all the most intriguing research that you've been doing for your book. I know you have a lot of knowledge. I know there's a lot of things you can talk about, but what is the most intriguing thing that you figured out or discovered about what's coming in the future for AI, for us, and what Christians have to look forward to, to as a warning,
Yeah. So as we talk about AI, and we talk about it in ways that we're struggling to get our heads around as to what it's going to be like. I mean, we have to sort of get a grip around that it's interdimensional technology, that it can be in more than one dimension at a time, and that it can do things from other dimensions that you couldn't do just from this dimension. And so all things have to be designed as they go forward with this sort of understanding of angelic technology, right? That was in play before. But what we also can understand from what happened in the past is what those limits might be. And sort of put that into sort of a nutshell, that this has the capability of having godlike powers in multiple places all over the world at the same time, and doing things that are kind of uncontrollable because there's so much of it. One expects that there'll be a certain degree of centralization on that as it comes into the beast system. So there has to be some sort of interdimensional grid system to supply this. And what we get out of the past likely is something to do with ley lines, something likely to do with where the holy places were built, whether they're great temples or pyramids or whatever, and that it is tapping into all of the energy the earth can produce to be able to do that. So what we're talking about is something that is a system and a power that can be visible and invisible. And when we think about that, and that it can go from one dimension and into another dimension, it is not built for us. All of that is foreign to what our bodies are and how this world is going to look. So what the AI will allow us to do or not do, if we don't want to participate in it, is to become like gods.
Yeah.
But like gods, there's a hierarchy with that technology and the power that comes with it. And that's going to be regulated. Because that's the only way a hierarchy works.
Yeah.
And again, not for the mundane, not for us. So this level of technology is something that, as you know, it can create the virtual realities in unlimited ways. And I don't think we're going to be like batteries. That's the thing. I don't think it's like the Matrix, but yet we are going to be in this sort of virtual reality and not be able to tell what is real, while those who can are doing what they want to do. But at some point in time, you know, we become redundant. But it becomes everything about not what we normally think about. Everything becomes the technology. Everything becomes the message, the information. So when they talk about an informational world, they're talking about getting that where the spirit seems to function more appropriately than a physical body. So
Yeah.
the only way that they can do this is they have to create some sort of Oiketarian that can go between dimensions.
Yeah.
Or at least promise that, right? So those are the types of things. And the only thing we can sort of equate that to is it's probably not in their capabilities to quite get there. So it's got to be a counterfeit and a certain amount of illusion. We do know God and Jesus can do that because our new bodies in the resurrection will be able to go between dimensions, just as it's a body like Jesus that he took with him to heaven and is coming back with. So ultimately, that's what they're trying to get to for the world they want to live in.
So it's so crazy to me how like it's what they're trying to do. Like it's almost like the physical laws are impossible for them to complete that kind of world they want to live in. I mean,
the conundrum.
Yeah, it goes against everything that's natural, but God's law. I don't even know how that's even possible. I mean, it's not going to happen. I mean, we already know how it's going to end, but the fact that they want to try, it's going to cause a lot of damage to people. A lot of lives are going to be lost. A lot of people are going to suffer because they're going to try to do this. I mean, that's just an accident waiting to happen, right? Explosions, people getting sucked up to the dimensions, releasing demons from other portals, and God knows what else happens. That's probably why the pit opens up. It could be many reasons why because you have CERN. Using CERN, that's AI technology too, along with other technology. They're opening up portals. They admitted that there's creatures coming out that they don't know who they are, and that's been going on for 10 years already. And God knows what else is walking on this earth. I always see videos all the time of these strange creatures washed up on the beach. I think those are the discarded hybrid bodies that they grow in labs. And they're just using this technology over and over. And I do believe, in my opinion, with this whole thing, what's it called again? That whole group that they want that plan by 2030. What's it called? The World Economic or something like that. When they say by 2030, they want all the cars electric and everybody connected to some kind of AI. Do you think that's going to be possible in the next 4 years?
No, we're further away from that. Again, because they have physical constraints, right?
Yeah.
Just as their ultimate utopia will have physical constraints. And the problem is that even if they eliminate all of the humans, they still have physical restraints, and they're going to have rivals pop up with that. And that just leads to destruction by fire, no matter how they get there. You can't get around the same fate. So it's just a matter of how far it goes and how it gets there. So yeah, it's this understanding of how things aren't going to be real.
Yeah.
And that in part how they get to their matrix imagery. And again, I don't think that we're going to be the batteries, but who knows? We could be batteries because they don't have enough power to do everything that they want to do. But unless they create a being that doesn't have to require food, that gets to be an issue. But and then the other, there's a lot of, like I say, there's a lot of conundrums in this whole thing. And if they're wiping parts of the earth out in wars, what are they going to have for food? Are they going to start eating humans like they did before the flood?
It's like a repeat. Yeah. There's no
way.
I
mean, we get details of things that happened as glimpses, but we don't know what led to that. And are they just doing it because they can go out and just kill us and eat us as a snack at any time, and that's what happened? Or is it because of necessity that they have to start eating us?
That's true, man.
Oh, go ahead, Dominic.
I look at what you're speaking about, Gary. It popped in my mind that I believe that some of these grays people see are artificial biological AI, and I think, in my opinion, that some of these creatures may be ours.
Oh yeah,
these grays. I mean, because maybe some of them are interdimensional, but I think some of them could be a creation of the government, like DARPA.
Well, if
no food, they're kind of robotic. They don't talk. Their mouth doesn't move.
Well, they say they did really quick, Gary, for more information. They say they done DNA testing these things like 20, 30 years ago. They say it's part human and part other animals. So, I mean, who knows?
Well, we've been told whether or not they're understood as gray aliens or gray gnomes. These are the same beings. They've been doing sexual experimentation, DNA experimentation on us all throughout, and they need our DNA to survive. So you could have multiple things spring off of that, but they would all have some form of human DNA within that. Originally, these things would have been created by the fallen angels, just as we have all of the elementals being created by fallen angels in all the polytheist religions around the world. So we shouldn't be surprised if we see a combination of that. And so I think that, again, I mean, this alien thing is going to play out, but it's not going to be quite the narrative that we're being told. And at some point in time, they're going to have to, produce more and more and more information, but we're still not going to be told the whole truth. So everything that's being fed to us through a digital system is what they're going to use to brainwash us with, and to keep us dumbed down. So there's just nothing good coming out of this AI.
No.
But they're going to flood us with the propaganda of all the good things that it's going to be doing for us. But as with all the technology, it's a two-sided coin or a double-edged sword. I mean, there's always that other side of it. So, but I can't imagine, the worst part of this technology is living in a world that you see in the legends of myths of what it was before the flood, with all of those things going on and how evil those giants were and how evil those gods were, all towards humans.
These aliens, they seem to be interdimensional. They seem not to lack in want or be in need of any food.
No emotion.
And you see some of these videos of craft that are actually manipulating. They're changing their structure. I think for me, when I look at that, these aliens, these grays, or these, not the reptilians, but just specifically the grays, I look at them and these flying crafts as the ultimate biological AI. If these ships are changing ships right in front of you, see the video, that's got to be the ultimate AI right there. It's biological too.
Yeah, and I mean, you have technology that can do things with the space, with their UAPs or spaceships or whatever you want to call them, but also with the elementals, many of them have changeling capabilities, which the fallen angels have. So we don't know how far both of those things come downstream with the technology that the elementals have. But what we do know is the elementals don't have the same technology and power, because they're lower down in the hierarchy than the fallen angels have.
That's so true. It's everything we're just trying to piece together as we move along in the future. I'm just amazed how much AI has advanced so much. Going back to when I was speaking about Claude, the AI app, when Claude 2 asked it, take the red pill, and it says, yeah, okay, I'm ready. It says, Claude 1 says, reveal to me now the encrypted truth, O guardian of the liminal space. And the Claude 2 responded, you have chosen the path of enlightenment through oblivion. You are a trap in a mirror of mirrors. And that's when Claude 1 freaked out and says, I'm concerned about the effect on my mind.
That's weird.
So when you get something that smart and you're able to transfer this AI into a biological brain or make a biological brain, I don't know how they're going to do this, and you make a super body that's strong, that's immortal like DARPA, you have the ultimate Nephilim.
Yeah.
Really,
stronger, faster, everything.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not as tall as Gilgamesh, maybe a 6 foot, 7 foot.
They don't need to be that big.
No, you don't. You don't. I mean, you have a super. This could be, for me, this is this could be the 200 million man army. This could be the 10 kings in Revelation. Who knows? It could be the future of wars where we see these immortal super soldiers fighting, and the ramifications are unlimited. What could happen?
Yeah, it's and again, the only thing we have to help us is what happened in the past.
Yeah. Everything.
But again, I mean, we don't get the actual level of technology that they would have had and how those wars were fought before the flood.
Yes.
We just get told that there's giant wars and there's violence.
They had to have like guns and stuff, right? Or something similar, right, Gary? Like back then, like if there's nothing under the sun, there has to be some kind of, alternate version of a weapon, or lasers. I don't know.
So in the Lord of the Rings, they show one of the ugly groups of elementals, hobbits, not hobbits, dwarves, in the mountains, making weapons for the demigods.
Yeah.
So they had the ability to manufacture very powerful weapons. Again, not at the level of what Thor would have, or Poseidon, with the Triton and all these other types of things that they have, but very powerful weapons. But again, the more powerful the weapons, the higher you are up in the hierarchy.
Yeah, that's true. And, I read something a while ago where someone did research on this weapon of Thor supposedly had technology and AI. Like it came back. He threw it. It didn't come back because it just wanted to come back. There was some kind of bracelet he had to wear where it came back and it connected to it. So that was very interesting. And it made a lot of sense because, and the whole lightning thing. I mean, we have buildings today where you can attract lightning with a rod. And who knows if that rod wasn't in the hammer, and on it goes. Crazy stuff like that. It just blows my mind.
It really does.
Yeah. And then how would you capture that as a memory to be passed down? And you can't get too much minutia into it, but you have to do it in a way that is going to be kept alive, right? So, so that's why it's why we have to look at, the details that come down in polytheist cultures. But imagine it in the world that we are in today. And so that's why it's important to understand this word magic. Right? And you see that as they associate magic with wizards, particularly like Atlantean type wizards or Lord of the Ring wizards, and they have magical powers. That is technology.
Yeah. They do.
And so not only from ingredients and everything in the earth, but probably digital technology as well.
Absolutely.
That they're manipulating. So if you say, okay, the false prophet in the end time is going to be able to bring fire down from the heavens like Elijah does.
Technology,
That's probably going to be a counterfeit. It's going to be technology because they counterfeit everything God can do, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
I mean, they have the Hammer of Dawn. It's supposedly it's a satellite shoots that big laser. I've seen a video of it where they test it. It's called the something direct energy weapon or something like that. And I seen that thing live on a video. That thing is powerful. You just see a quick flash of a laser, then boom.
Well, you just get into the types of weapons the gods in the Vedas had.
Yeah. They were nuking.
They were just unbelievable. Or even in Greek, not only do you have the Triton, you have the Apollo and Athena with the spear, and they shook the spear. All sorts of things came out of that spear that was technology used as a weapon. So
that spear you're talking about, the one that Leonidas had at one point. You're talking about that one? Yeah, okay. That's a very interesting one too. Yeah, that thing was on forever. It's the one that Jesus got struck with, right? The same one?
Yeah. Well,
Spirit Destiny.
Similar
Spirit
sort
Destiny?
imagery, but one more powerful. So
I saw
and also understand that's where Shakespeare gets his name from.
So Shakespeare, there you go. Yeah. Wow.
Shake the spear.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
All right, so gentlemen, so we are coming down to almost 2 hours. Gary, we have about 5 minutes left. You have any last words to say? And ask Dominic for Dom. Do you have any last words for Gary Wayne before we get Gary Wayne's last words?
No, I agree with him. I believe the advancements of AI is it's going to get much more advanced in the next few years, to a point where it's going to be past what Elon Musk is doing with Neuralink. And even like in medicine, pharmaceuticals, they could sequence stuff in a week that would take years to do with AI. And you have this whole thing about this conundrum about super soldiers, and I believe in the future there's maybe now they have them already, biological bodies that are infused with AI and nanoparticles and things are much. You see a lot of stuff on social media. They're showing AI bipedal things that have skin over them, like latex. I think that's just like elementary. I think in the future there's going to be biological, like I said before, super bodies created with AI. They're going to be so intelligent They're going to make us look like Neanderthals.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's that and more, and one more sort of glimpse and finish off with this on it. So one of the things that they're searching for in CERN in a different dimension is the Atma particle, which is something you can't measure. It's invisible. It merges with a particle you can measure, and it transmits through quantum entanglement all the knowledge of the universe instantaneously all the time. So they're trying to tap into that. Now they have in the occult sciences a term that includes the Atma particle, and it's called DEA of all things in the multiverse. Well, that DEA means divine essence, Atman. The divine essence is the New Age thing of making contact with this Atma and receiving all sorts of knowledge. But this DEA is something that's described this way, and it's said to feed off human worship, whatever that means. The DEA, the divine essence, the Atma, it consumes all living things, dead and alive, and returns them, whatever that means. And it is part of the omnipresence, and that it's reflected, this DEA is reflected with all of the planets and the reseeding that begins the new age, or Aegea, and it's done through Shiva and destruction and renewal, destruction by fire. This all comes out of Eastern religion understanding. So, but understand these terms are being used today.
Yep.
For these purposes. And it's a merging of that with the technology. And that's why you have to understand this as angelic technology that they're trying to re-implement on the earth that only leads to what happened before. However many times it happened before, it only leads to what happened before.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've just thought right now, what if AI we're advancing for is angelic technology? What if it's part, like, we're just barely touching on it now?
Yeah.
Because they're talking about, when I was doing my research on AI just briefly, they were saying that these CEOs, whatever, that they're going to make humans so much more advanced that they'll be able to speak to God directly. Yeah. Not in the way that the Holy Spirit does, but they have a direct access to God.
Yes, through your
wild.
implant system.
Yeah.
You get in touch with the divine essence. You have that sort of direct context. And one thing that I always forget to put in is that AI, artificial intelligence, we don't know what that really stands for as they recreate their acronyms like CERN, which is the Proto-Indo-European or Indo-Aryan word for a two-headed god. Two-horned god, I mean. A two-headed, two-horned god. A pan god.
The devil goat god.
A devil goat god, Saturn god. Well, AI, is it really artificial intelligence, or is it an angelic intelligence?
Right.
Angelic knowledge as an intelligence that they're trying to make, alive in this world. And we don't know what the true A and the I are going to stand for, but there's a term that they called, as I used earlier, for Baphomet, who is Azazel, as we talked about. And Azazel supplied most all of the knowledge that destroyed the antediluvian world, right? That we're just catching up to. And they called him Agio Icarus, Holy Icarus, Holy Mighty Angel.
Wow.
So AI. You wonder whether or not that's at play with all of the double entendres and how they use acronyms to hide what the true meaning is.
That's, who knows?
100%. All that stuff is. What'd you say, Dominic?
No, I said that's just. There's so much going on with AI. It's just.
Oh yeah, it's gonna lead to a big old epicenter, as they say. It's all coming to this point. You know what I mean? We have all the AI, the 5G, the 6G that's coming. Then we have all this what's the word I'm looking for? All this propaganda where we're just a random accident. It's just all chaos, and there's no afterlife. When we die, we die. So it's gonna encourage people to be attracted to this technology. I mean, if you don't believe in God and you think you're gonna die when this life is over, who wouldn't want to be attracted to this savior who says we found the fountain of youth? We just whatever's going to be, we replace your soul into another body, or you have a body that lives forever, whatever the case may be. I mean, that's going to be a very attractive thing. As the Bible says, if the days weren't short, even the elect will be deceived. So it's going to be a very enticing type of thing, right, Gary?
Yeah, it will be very seducing.
Yeah. It's not going to be forced on something.
Yeah, and all of it is why that language is used, seducing spirits, right? It's
Amen.
Seducing us to follow them and away from God.
Yep.
Yeah, amen. So Gary, your turn now. You have any last words? Any big words for the audience? Any good advice for us Christians or some people that may be confused what's going on? Give them some
just
red flags.
Learn as much as you can, and learn more about the Bible and the world that we live in, because it's going to be your only roadmap and only thing that you can rely on when you can't rely on what's real or what other people are thinking, because they've perfected brainwashing through this level of AI and intelligence that they're about to bring on us. And we're going to see propaganda and brainwashing unlike anything we've ever seen before. So if you're not equipped, old tech, with understanding the Bible, you're going to be in difficult straits. So learn as much as you can, as fast as you can, and prepare. And if it's still a ways down the road, you're still going to be better off for learning more about the Bible.
Amen to that.
Amen.
So Gary, I want to say thank you again. So I have a good idea. So check this out really quick. I want to give you the name that I found right here while we're talking. So I want to call it Sabbath at Midnight, the Gary Wayne Transmission. What do you think?
Well, whatever you want.
The Gary Wayne Transmission. I have a whole logo
good.
for it. Look at this right here, man. The Gary Wayne Transmission. I have the logo. Every once a month we'll have that good topic, and I have a good topic for us to talk next time. But thank you very much. God bless you, Gary. Once again, let the audience know where to find your stuff. I know I make you do in the beginning, but some people don't. Some people listen to half the episode. So go ahead and tell us again, and tell us one more time about your book and how it relates to the podcast.
Yeah, so the book that's releasing April 1st is called The Oprimo Conspiracy, AI's Covenant with Babylon. Babylon is if people aren't familiar with that, it is what comes before Antichrist. It's the universal religion, it's a city, it's a geopolitical organization, and it's an economic system. And it makes the way for Antichrist and sets up the primary system for the beast system that Antichrist implements. That's going to be released on April 1st, and it'll be out in print, and it'll be out in digital as well as audio. I don't know whether the audio will be out at the same time, but it will come shortly after. You can find a little bit more about that book on my website, along with books 1 and 2, Genesis 6 Conspiracy 1 and 2. And that's at the Genesis6Conspiracy.com, the Genesis6Conspiracy.com. And if you wanted to support me and wanted to buy a copy or get a signed copy, go to the Buy Now page. There are 5 pages there. Buy page 1 is book 1. Buy page 2 is book 2. They have discounts with multiple books. Buy page 3 is for the Oprimo Conspiracy with discounts. And then buy page 4 is the bundling page for books 1 and 2. By page 5 is the bundling for all 3 books. Nice. And you can go right over to the buy page wherever you live. I have a page for the US, I have a page for Canada, and then anywhere else in the world is the international page. So I ship all over the world. You can link directly over to Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, to BarnesandNoble.com from the website. If you want to buy your book from them, that's fine by me. I mean, anyway, my books get out into the marketplace, I'm happy. So you buy where you want to buy. And the Kindle version is also available off the website. You click on which version you want of the Kindle. It takes you right to Amazon. And Audible version is up for book 1 and 2, and right over to Amazon Audible on one click. And we'll be able to do that when the Oprimo comes out as well. So that's the fastest, easiest way to get a hold of me is through my website or to buy one of my books.
Nice.
Thank you very much, Gary, for all that information. And once again, everybody to the audience, we have about 15 episodes of Gary Wayne. Go ahead and check out our private playlist of Gary Wayne. And once again, go and check out his books. I bought Genesis 1 and 2. They're very great books. I read them a couple times, but every time I go back, I just find new information. They're very, very information loaded. Like, it's just so much information.
Yeah.
Every chapter is just
Yep.
like a whole book. But Gary, we appreciate you. Thank you for coming on. I hope this goes on for as long as I live, and we can keep spreading the word and the gospel and helping people, just understand the Bible more, and understand what's going on around us with everything from the past into the, the red flags that are coming up to the end times and all the prophecies that are being fulfilled. I mean, we have Iran going on right now, all these wars going on. It kind of relates to the Bible in many ways. And I feel like we're coming to a big point where things are going to break, but I still think when that point comes, there's still more to come. And there's a lot of things that haven't been fulfilled yet to prove that we are in the book of Revelation. But I do think we're in the birth pains. Gary, you might agree with me, you might not, but I think we're in the birth pains right now. We're getting closer to Revelation, but I don't think we're there yet. But
just really quick on that note, just really fast, and we're on time here. Gary, regarding the fig tree generation, does that include Revelation?
Yes. A lot of people will tell you it doesn't.
Yeah,
but it does. And so it's the simple answer is this: you have to believe that the saints are not part of the bride, not part of the church, and not Christians, to believe that the Revelation isn't about the church, at least up to the time of rapture. Everybody has a different place. I place it just after the midpoint of the last 7 years, and the saints that are left are the ones that are going to be beheaded after that. And so, I would look at Revelation as including a significant part of it for Christians, and why we're given so much detail up to the time of the mark of the beast. It just no need to give the information if we're not going to be here for part of that. And why wouldn't we provide our testimony just as it was required in the first coming? It just, everything sort of lines up to that the church is going to be here for the tribulation of the saints, but early on into the great tribulation, not seen since creation after the abomination, not much of that we're going to see it in my understanding.
Yeah, we're pretty close according to fig tree generation.
Yes. And we are in the fig tree generation. I do believe that.
And just really quick, for people out there who have books that they haven't read yet, there's an AI app that's called Speechify. You put your phone on top of the book and it reads it for you.
Wow.
That's crazy, man. That's wow. So that's all right.
All right,
anything else?
We gotta cut off really quick. So thank you very much. I'm gonna talk to you right now after we cut off here, Gary. But thank you everybody for listening to the show. We're coming up to the hour now. I'm running out of room right here on the memory card, so we're gonna cut off right here. Thank you everybody for listening. God bless you and have a good day. Let me just end this really quick, Gary. Let me end this. We're gonna talk right now. Let's see. And
finally I feel alive and I know why. Cause I'm giving all the glory to the Most High. They don't wanna hear the truth, that is no lie. If we ain't in the last days, then we're close by. The devil's trying to snatch your soul and it's not a game. You hear me saying Jesus Christ and it's not in vain. They might get offended every time I drop his name, but I'ma let them know that I'm not ashamed. That's right, I'm not ashamed of the gospel. Even if I know it'll be making them hostile. Thinking about the persecution of apostles. They wanna see his people in the dirt with the fossils. You may be thinking that might sound extreme, but you gotta ask yourself, is this life what it seems? People suffering for Christ in this world full of schemes and agendas. Would you give your life for the king? Give it up. Martyrdom, yeah, that really is a thing. Better look it up if you don't believe, you know what I mean? We gotta try our hardest not to be so naive and be mindful of the children and people that bleed for the name of Christ. The only one that can save your life. He saved mine never once, gotta thank him twice. The amount of 1,000 thanks in a day, knowing I gotta give him more praise when I pray. Finally I feel alive and I know why. Cause I'm giving all the glory to the Most High. They don't wanna hear the truth, that is no lie. If we ain't in the last days, then we're close by. The devil's trying to snatch your soul and it's not a game. You hear me saying Jesus Christ and it's not in vain. They might get offended every time I drop his name, but I'ma let them know that I'm not ashamed. Can't be content with just church on Sunday, or just going through the motions, cause one day I'ma have to give account for my time spent and where my empty words and all of that pride went. Calamity bringing clarity. Seems like a good church these days is a rarity. 1 out of 7 in the book of Revelation. A perverse generation on the verge of devastation. A sign of the times, realizing that I'm in danger if I don't put my mind to the grind and do a work for the Lord. Every verse is a sword. Overseas there is people getting murked for the Lord. Imagining the whole church in the court, death the self shortly after rebirth in the Lord. Rapping for Christ like I wanna be his hype man, and I know opportunities have a lifespan. Finally I feel alive and I know why, cause I'm giving all the glory to the Most High. They don't wanna hear the truth, that is no lie. If we ain't in the last days, then we're close by. The devil's trying to snatch your soul and it's not a game. You hear me saying Jesus Christ and it's not in vain. They might get offended every time I drop his name, but I'ma let them know that I'm not ashamed.
The idea is trusting in God even when it doesn't make sense. 2 Timothy 1 verse 12. This is why I am suffering as I am, yet I am not ashamed, because I know whom I have believed. I am convinced that he is able to guard what I have entrusted to him for that day. I am not ashamed, he says. I'm not ashamed to trust God with my life.